over the moon because what's funny is she's actually in Moorhead or around that area. And Tate, one of my previous guests that I am now friends with, recommended me to her before I moved back to Texas. And so I texted her and I was like, hey, do you have time? And I was literally leaving like a day later. So I don't know why I thought that was ever going to work out. And I was like, hey, do you have time? And you're like, no, I'm out of town. And I was like, well, dadgummit. And this was before we figured out distance podcasts, which is pretty cool. And so now I was able to reach out, and now here we are, full circle, which is funny because we were just talking about how crazy it is that when I was in Moorhead, we didn't do it together, and now we're doing it together when I'm 14 hours away. So it's really cool that we're able to do this through Zoom and everything. But Miss Kelly, why don't you share a little bit about yourself and what makes you you?
Yeah. Well, again, thanks for having me. Like, this is so fun. I love
Yeah.
I appreciate what you're doing here too. Yeah, so like what you said, like I'm from Moorhead and I am a mom, and I'm a mom of a toddler, which is really fun. It's always crazy. I got little sleep last night, so dependence on the Lord looks a lot different than it did when I was younger.
That's how our situations are very different, but because of Blue, my dog, I feel like I have a toddler. I always talk to Nana like he's my child. I'm like, Nana, this boy eats so much food. He just drives me nuts when I'm trying to do stuff and get work done. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. But yeah, anyways, proceed with what you were saying.
Yeah, people say that dogs are like kids, and I know some people roll their eyes at that, but it really is true because we also have a dog. So I have 2 kids.
It happens. It happens. You get busy.
Oh yeah, I definitely get busy. So it is really funny because I'm in Moorhead right now, and I actually grew up here, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, you grew up here, like in this small college town? Like, what was that like?"
Uh-huh.
And I remember when I was younger, like I wanted to leave so bad, and I wanted to go to different schools, and I had a boyfriend at the time, so I had to stay where he was. And of course, like normal, we broke up like a week after I started school. This is so typical. But once I was in college, I joined Crew, which is a campus ministry here, and I just like fell in love with it. It like they taught me so many different things about like how to share your faith, and that was a big one for me. Like I did not know how to talk to people about Jesus, and Crew was like, here are the resources to help you do that. And that was just so life-changing for me that me and my husband decided to like go on staff and work with them. And we were thinking about going overseas, and then there's just such a huge need here at Moorhead, and we decided to stay. And this was the first year actually that I just left full-time staff with Crew to pursue photography, and then my husband is still on staff with Crew. So yeah, so it's been quite a journey, but I'm here.
Yes. Well, you know what's crazy? I see your photography on TikTok a lot, which is funny. And they're so good. Like I'm not even like blowing smoke. Like they really are beautiful and very unique like pictures. Like you're very creative. So
Thank you.
it's good that you're pursuing photography. It's hard to find good photographers because a lot of times they're not very conversational, and I'm like, I need you to tell me what to do, but I don't know what I'm doing. Like, what do I pose? Like, is this weird? Do I look fat? And so yeah, but being at Moorhead was like a huge transformation in my faith because the college ministry there, like I think that is something that is so important that is growing so much now. I think people are focusing more on younger generations, which is good. I think older generations are kind of getting left on the back burner right now, though.
Yeah.
That's like, I guess, a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
But college ministry is awesome right now. And Moorhead totally changed my perspective on church because for a long time, it just seemed like I know you needed to go to church, and I enjoyed church. But it kind of got to the point where it just seemed like I was going just to go, just to say I could
Yeah.
go. And then I got to the point where, when you're in college, you don't have to go. Like, it's completely a choice because you're on your own. And so for a little bit, I didn't go, just because I was afraid to try new churches. I
Mhm.
always try because I don't want to get attached and then feel bad and not leave, even if I don't like the church or don't agree with what they say. Um, and so it's just kind of crazy that Better Life totally changed my perspective, and everybody in the college ministry in Moorhead was so welcoming. But yeah, I
Mhm.
think that's college ministry is like so important, and everybody does a good job in Moorhead with it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree. Yeah. I feel like where it is like a smaller school, like everyone, all the campus ministries, like the staff meet together every month, and they're all connected to the local churches here, and it really is like a great community to be a part of. Like I found some of my best friends in crew and even like in the Baptist campus ministries. um yeah, so I think college is definitely a life-changing moment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, college is like a huge aspect of people's faith. I feel like that sometimes gets overlooked because you kind of go from this, hey, I'm with my family and I'm whatever they believe.
Mhm.
Like, whatever my
Yeah.
parents say to believe, that's what I believe. And I mean, it's the same with pretty much any aspect, because you grow up in a home and you're just like, I'm gonna do whatever, whatever they say, unless you're like the rebellious type, which
Yeah.
which then you want to do the opposite. So you're still kind of following like, that premise. But yeah, college is crazy because you're on your own, and this is where you make your decisions and you find out kind of who you are. And yeah, it's crazy. But
That's
less about me and my college experience. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your testimony?
Yeah, yeah, thanks for asking. So like I said, grew up in Moorhead, and um I feel like I, had a pretty normal childhood or whatever. It's interesting though, we never like grew up. I grew up going to church on like Easter and Christmas. So like I was a CEO, Christmas, Easter, other holidays. And like none of my friends really went to church either. And so it just wasn't, I didn't really think about that aspect of my life. And I actually had this friend in 7th grade, and she would just start randomly talking to me about Jesus. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, you have your religion, like, that's your thing. Like, I don't understand what it has to do with me. And she honestly just kept pestering me about it. And when I was a freshman, she was like, hey, we're having this like lock in type thing. You really need to go. And she had been asking me so much. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe if I go, she won't ask me to go again, because I'll be like, I went that one time. So of course, naturally I went, and the Lord really like used her, and you like even used that youth ministry to make me realize like, oh wait, Jesus is a person, and Jesus actually wants a relationship with me. And I think that just kind of stood out to me, that like Christianity is so different than like any other religion. Like you don't have to do X, Y, and Z to get to God. Um, and I was kind of at a low point anyway. Like I was in a lot of like drinking and things like that, and felt just like a lot of social pressure that like other high schoolers were like talking about me. And yeah, I just needed that relationship with the Lord. And so from that point on, in high school, it was just what it looked like. It was just me trying to figure out what it was to follow Jesus. Like,
Yeah.
and I took the initiative to walk in the power of the Holy Spirit, but sometimes that looked like me being like, I'm going to take my Bible to school. I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to take it to let people know that I have a Bible. And but I think that's just like growing in maturity as a child. Like then that's what I was. I was a child. And go and during all those years, the theme of my life was just trying to get like people to accept me, like boys and friends, and really like putting value in like what I looked like. And a lot of that looked like me controlling what I ate. And the thought in my mind goes back to, they were like these boys, which boys say these things. You know, they said, yeah, Kelly would be even prettier if she like lost weight. So what I do, like, I'm like, okay, well, if that's what the people want, like, I gotta do it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, really sad. Again, as a child, you know.
Yeah.
And so that caused me to lose so much weight. I remember like weighing like 80 pounds in high school, and then going from there, like really struggling. And then when I got to college, I met a lady on staff with Crew, and it was the first time someone had ever asked me like, hey, what are you struggling with? And I'm like, what do you mean, what am I struggling with? Like, why would I tell you that? You know?
Yeah.
It was like, part of our relationship is that like you confess your sins to me, and I'm going to show you God's love by like telling you that you're forgiven, but then also working with you to like help you grow. And that was the first time I ever told somebody that I actually had an eating disorder, and super life changing for me. And yeah, work, like even to this day, like growing and like working through those things, like not finding acceptance in like what other people view me as. And being a people pleaser is hard sometimes, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, but like trusting in the Holy Spirit that like, you know, I have my identity in him and not like in how other people view me, which is a very hard concept to grasp, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I vividly remember third grade, definitely not old enough for it to be considered bullying, I don't think, because they were just making an observation. They weren't making fun of me. But these boys were like, India, your arms are hairy. And I instantly, you know, that feeling of where your face turns bright red and your throat gets all tight because you have tears welling up in your eyes. And I was just like, haha. And I was like, okay. And I remember going home, and this is when like that weird, definitely should not have been shaving at all, but I shaved my arms.
Oh no.
And I started doing that, I mean, probably till I got to high school. Like it was a long time. I don't know, maybe I wasn't in third grade, maybe I was in fifth grade, so a little better than third.
Still, yeah.
But still a little young. But I remember doing that, and then my dad, because I was embarrassed of it, because I almost was more embarrassed of, I would rather have been embarrassed of shaving my arms than having hairy arms, you know? And so I started like, so I was kind of embarrassed of shaving my arms. So I would just like wear jackets a lot and stuff. And my dad noticed one day, and so he started shaving his arms. And he did that all the time. And I think he does every now. I think he still did that every now and then recently, thinking I still did it. But when I got to high school, I kind of realized, I was like, it's, you know, it's just part of me. Like,
right.
It's not embarrassing. I have dark, thick hair. Like that's what's going to happen.
And
yeah. And it's something like you can't control. So it's so frustrating, because I was like, what am I supposed to do with this information? And so I'm still like very self-conscious, especially now that I have a job where I see so many different people. Like when I'm taking their cards from them, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're looking at the hair on my arms. Not a single person cares about that. Not a single person.
Yeah.
And it's only like me. And so kind of going back to what you said, it's just kind of, it's so hard, because if you are constantly basing your beauty on what other people say and kind of the beauty standards of society, like you are never going to feel beautiful, because beauty standards are constantly changing. And that's something I feel like we weren't really taught when we were younger, because it was just not a lot of people talked about it. They just said, you're beautiful the way you are. And I'm like, okay, well then why do I not feel this way? Why is society telling me that girls need to be like skinny and tall and
like
not
the
have,
Olsen twins.
yes, and like they can't have muscles, because if you have too many muscles you look like a boy. And I just remember growing up and being so insecure of being strong, and I hated knowing I weighed more than boys, and it always drove me nuts. And getting to the point of realizing, okay, well, first of all, none of this is going to matter one day, and it shouldn't matter right now, but believe it or not, like it's still gonna affect you. Like that doesn't just go away. But just kind of realizing that, you know, like you said, your identity is found in Christ, meaning your beauty is found in Christ, because we are made in the image of God. So we are as beautiful as we're ever going to get, because we are literally made in the image of a perfect being. And it's kind of crazy to think about that we were made in his image. And so we're just beautiful the way we are, regardless. And something my family always said was like, my aunt would always say, if I was being rotten or something, she'd say, India, now you're being ugly. And I never understood that until I got older. And I was like, oh, that means you're just being like, you're being mean, you're being rotten. And it's crazy to me, because how you are on the inside will actually end up affecting how you look on the outside. Because if you are rotten and you are evil and you're living of the ways of this world, it's going to show. And it's crazy to me that it does, but it just in your eyes too, which is crazy, because for a long time I felt like this, like my eyes had like dimmed, like almost in like a weird way.
Yeah.
Because, and it wasn't just that, but I was like not getting compliments on my eyes. And that sounds so weird, but I was used to growing up with compliments on my eyes because I have blue eyes. And
they're so pretty.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bright. I love it.
But it was crazy to me, because once I started again, like following Jesus more and not just kind of being this like lukewarm Christian, I got that, I guess, my sparkle back, and started like getting compliments on my eyes. And not that you need to identify that, but it kind of relates, like when you get lost from the Lord, you are ugly on the inside.
Yeah.
And it kind of affects how like people see you, because if you're rotten, nobody's gonna be interested in even talking to you. And I'm like, so I don't know how that, I think I'm going on a tangent, but anyways, I'll let you talk since you're the guest on here.
No, yeah, that's good though. Like, and it's so fleeting, you know. I have to remind myself of that every day. Like, you are gonna get older, you are gonna get wrinkles. Like, that's just like part of life, and it shows that you are gonna have more wisdom. Like, it's a good thing, you know. Yeah, so it's really hard being a girl sometimes.
Yeah, well, and it's crazy too, because I think that's another thing, even for the guys out there. I feel for them, because there is a standard, and it kind of gets looked over for them because they're guys. And so it kind of becomes this thing where we're just like, girls struggle with this because of like models and stuff. But I'm like, but I guess guys struggle with the same things.
too.
Yeah. But when you said like that our age and like beauty and stuff is fleeting, something that is crazy to me is we've been reading Ecclesiastes in church. Like, that's what we've been focusing on. And the whole concept of Ecclesiastes is everything is fleeting. Everything is vain. Everything on this earth is gonna go to waste one day. And everything gets old, everything goes away. And I think that's a crazy concept to think, like, everything we are right now, like what I look like right now, is going to change. But like when you get to heaven, of course, which I do have questions about that, but you're going to be like,
what will I look like?
What am I going to look like? I don't even know. I can't even give any information on the topic, because I genuinely just don't even know. But it's crazy to me, because everything will just go away. Like the beauty you have. So in reality, none of it really even matters, but it's so hard living in a world that puts that above everything else sometimes.
Oh yeah. Like putting above so many things. Yeah. I haven't read Ecclesiastes in forever.
Oh, yeah.
It has some really, though, actually, the whole Old Testament has some really good stuff in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I've been like, really into First and Second Kings lately, and it blows my mind like how many times people in the Old Testament have messed up, but the Lord is like still there in the midst of it. Yeah, and it's just so much harder to read,
Mhm.
but I get so much wisdom from the Old Testament, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. And it's all stories that I literally am just like, what in the heck? Like
Yeah.
there's I'm like, I can't believe that happened. I don't understand. I'm like, I remember I read, that's funny that you said that. Oh no, I didn't read First Kings. I read First Samuel, but there's some weird stuff that gets said in First Samuel and Second Samuel. I went to my dad and I said, Dad, here's the deal. I need you to break down this for me because I am confused. I am lost because it talks about how Saul goes in. Yeah, no. King Samuel. Wait, I'm okay. I'm lost now. Now I just sound dumb. But anyways,
Yeah,
the king, there's too many S's. There's somebody going on. I don't know. There's lots of
Solomon, whatever.
Yeah. And so he walked into the cave and it says he walks in to relieve himself. And I remember being in my quiet time and I literally sat there and I was like, why was that a necessary point to make in the Bible? I'm like, what? So you were sitting here getting the words from the Lord. And this is why I know the Lord has humor, because he sat there and said, all right, man, you're going to write down that he relieved himself. And I'm going to give everybody a good laugh. And there we go. And so I remember asking him, I was like, this is so interesting. Why was this put in there? And he was like, I don't know. Like, I couldn't tell you. That's what's crazy to me about the Old Testament. There's so many things. Oh, I guess for the whole Bible, there's so many things I'm just like, what? Question all the time.
Here.
I know. Like, why is this here? But it's one of those things you just don't, I guess it's on a need to know basis.
Yeah. Like, oh, they probably need to know this. So
or like,
I'll allow that one in there.
Yeah, I'm just gonna throw this one in here and leave them with tons of questions that they can't get answers for.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, that's so true. I was reading I think it was last night or the night before last. And I think it was Elijah who he like met this woman and he was supposed to ask her to like give him bread, like to feed him. And she was like, well, I'm basically about to go with my son and die. And he heals his son. And it really reminded me, because I think it was near Samaria, but it reminded me of the woman at the well. Mm-hmm. And just like how the whole Bible isn't just like broken up into books, mm-hmm. but like it is one story through and through. Like God has a plan and his plan is in the book. But it honestly took me a while to figure that out. But I've been reading my daughter's Jesus Storybook Bible, mm-hmm. and I think everyone needs to have that Bible. It's like a Bible that explains like Jesus in a story, but it shows the whole picture. So like even in Genesis, it will say like, the world is now broken, but like a prince will come who will one day mend this broken world. Yeah. And at the very end, through Revelation, it's like the prince came back and saved everyone just like he had promised in the beginning. Mm. And when I read that book, I'm like, I just need to read this for myself, like because it's that good, you know.
One of the things I remember growing up, and everybody was always like, just have faith like a child. And I didn't understand that until I got older. And like, especially now in this stage of life that I'm in, I have so many questions, which is not a bad thing. But yeah, a lot of times we just have to have blind faith. And that's hard for me because I'm like, I want to know why. Like, I was talking about this the other day and how my dad always used to say, you know, if I tell you to do something, do it. Don't ask questions because it's for your own good. And so like, he's like, if I tell you to stop, it's for your good. And so I think I remember him using an example, like if I'm saying like, stop, and you continue doing what you're doing, what if somebody grabs you, or what if somebody like takes you or kidnaps you, or that was always his go-to, which is a very real thing nowadays, especially. But it was just kind of that. And so he always said, just obviously it kind of depends on the situation, but in the moment, don't ask questions later. And I think that's crazy to me, is because our Father has so much wisdom, obviously, and he is telling us all these things in the Bible. And of course we can ask questions, but sometimes we just don't need the answer to them. Like I said, it's like a need to know, like we don't need the answer. And it's all because it is this one big story, and he has everything leading up, just like those little parts of the Bible that are like the genealogy parts that you skip right over because you're like, why? What? I don't know who. I don't know how to even pronounce the first part of this name, let alone the whole name. And now I don't know how to connect, and I don't have them memorized. And so it's kind of this like, it's kind of this weird thing where you have to know the big picture in order to understand the smaller ones, because some of those stories are just like, why is this in here? But they're all play a part in the story of Jesus and in our story.
Yeah, exactly. And it's cool that we get to be a part of that like larger picture.
Oh,
you know, like I can't imagine living life, you know, not fully knowing like my purpose. And, you know, I know there's a difference between like calling and purpose and things, but like Jesus tells the disciples, like, go and tell the nations about me. And that to me was like, okay, like how do I play a part in like sharing that with other people, like getting people to get it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's definitely a huge thing that I'm passionate about.
Yeah, for sure. So I know you talked earlier kind of about how Crew kind of taught you how to go out and talk to people about Jesus. So like, do you have any tips and tricks for anybody struggling kind of with that same part? Because it is hard talking to people, especially like we talked about earlier, how it's hard to talk to people because nobody wants to be social anymore. So like, how would you recommend doing that in this day and age?
Yeah, I think just like being intentional is really important. And something that I have been learning lately that has been life-changing just like these past few months for me is like have a prayer list, like just a few steps that I'm learning, like have a prayer list of 5 people and constantly like focus on those 5 people. And with those people, ask yourself, like, where are you at in like sharing spiritual things with them? So like in order to have like a gospel conversation, like giving them the opportunity to be like, okay, I want Jesus to be in my life. Like you can't just like go up. I mean, you can, but it's in today's age, it's so much better to like have a casual conversation with someone. So like my neighbors, I, you know, for the most part have had a casual conversation with all of them, you know, and then work your way after your casual conversation to a meaningful conversation. So things like, what was it like for you growing up? You know, how do you feel about your current circumstances? Like, are you suffering? And like really deep, meaningful conversations. And then after the meaningful, then you move to a spiritual conversation and like what their spiritual background is and like see if they're open to the spiritual. And then you can move on to like those discovery questions and like maybe even getting into the Bible with them. So it's like kind of like a 4-step process, you know? And so it's good for me because I like completing tasks. Like I like checking things off. So like I went through and listed all the people in my area or like my circle of influence, like the people I see during my work, like the people I live around, and thinking through like, who have I had a meaningful conversation with? Okay, well, my next step when I talk to them, whenever that is, like I'll try to get into a spiritual conversation. And so it's just like slowly like taking that one step at a time. Yeah. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think one of the things that I've focused on in this season of my life a lot is intentional conversations, because they're so lost. We're so busy with like small talk and like, how's your day? And not asking, really caring how it actually is going. And I struggle with that too. at work, just seeing so many people every day. And I'm just like, how's your day? What can I get you? And it kind of becomes this repetitive, like, I don't actually care. I'm just trying to get people through the line. And I think you're right. And we're not really called to, I think one thing that I've learned a lot is discipleship is so important in a walk with other people. Like, you can't just kind of drop a big bomb on somebody and then expect them to just like figure it out on their own. Like, you have to follow through. You can't be like, are you saved? Like, are you interested in it? Do you have any questions? And then that be the last conversation.
And then, yep, that's it.
And I'm like, dude, that would confuse me too. So I don't blame you. One thing I've learned a lot is when God puts somebody on your heart, like if somebody just pops up and you randomly think of somebody, text them. That's what I do. That's what I started doing now. If I think of somebody, I'm like, hey, I was just thinking about you. And I think I started doing that after my grandma texted me one day and she said, hey, how can I be praying for you? I talk to my grandma every single day. I love my Nana. Okay. I talk to her every day. And she still proceeded to text me and say, hey, I pray for you. That is something that I've picked up on. And I am like, that is my goal. If I can text one person and have a meaningful conversation with them about how they're actually doing, like, hey, I'm thinking about you. How are you doing? How can I pray for you? And that's not to toot my own horn, because I'm still bad at it. And I'm like a horrible texter, because obviously I think I have like, I don't want to self-diagnose myself with ADHD, but I get real distracted now. And so I'll like, somebody will text me and I'll see it and I'll be like, okay, I'll sit down and text them back later. And then it's like 2 days from now. And I'm like, oh, I haven't replied. And now it's really awkward.
You're like, in the meantime, I've messaged them on Instagram, sent them a Snapchat, posted on TikTok.
I posted on Instagram. I posted 5 TikToks, and I'm going viral on the TikTok and all these things. And so now I'm focused on TikTok, and I'm like, well, dadgum, I'm freaking creative genius and everybody loves me. And then I'm like, oh, I have like 13 missed messages on here. And then
and they probably hate me.
Yes. And I'm like, people probably think I'm just blowing them off. And I really don't mean to. It's not intentional. But the point behind all of that was intentional conversation is so important, like you said. And we have so many people in our life that need that intentional conversation. You never know. He's needing somebody to talk to.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you just don't know what kind of day someone's having, or like, even though it seems scary to get into a spiritual conversation, like there have been times that I've done that and people have been like, you don't know how much this means to me. And I'm like, wow, like I didn't realize that just like asking them how they are spiritually, like the Lord obviously put that on my heart for a reason, you know?
Yeah. It's tough, because sometimes it feels like, one thing it gets frustrating, because I'm like, why does nobody ever do this to me? I'm like, why does nobody ever ask me actually how my day's going? And it's kind of crazy. Well, okay, my family does for sure. But I really do talk on the phone to my family every day, because I live by myself now. And so now I have to talk to somebody. And obviously, like I'm venting on here, I guess. But sometimes it feels like you kind of this whole constant, like I'm pouring out, and I'm not really getting poured into. But that thing is, I've seen this the other day. You have to be a friend to have a friend. You have to show the qualities of a friendship that you're kind of like looking for or you're needing. And if it's not the people that's already in your life, somebody's going to come through and have that. But you can't expect. It's just like in a relationship, any relationship, like if you're giving or you're not giving and you're expecting somebody to give, like if you're not being loyal, you can't expect loyalty. If you're not being kind, kindness of course should be what people give because of Jesus, but that's not it. So I'm like, to me, my blue biting me. Blue. But again, like if you're not being intentional and having intentional conversations, you can't really expect that back. So my thought process on the whole matter is like, just keep reaching out. And it's
Right.
not just all about getting something back. It's about
Mhm.
having good conversation. That's what Jesus did his whole entire lifetime. Like you said, the woman at the well, that's another thing. Like he completely changed her life with just a simple, meaningful conversation.
Mhm.
And that's the case with most of the people. They just need somebody to talk to and somebody to care about them.
Yeah. And then that woman went on to change the world by telling the Samaritans about Jesus, you know?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so it's like you don't know the impact that one conversation could have, not just on like one person, but like a whole group of people.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy how powerful words are and how powerful a good conversation can be, because
Mhm.
like something I've noticed a lot after, dating and all this is how important, well, I guess it wasn't that important because it just left my mind. Um,
It happens.
I'm totally lost what I was going to say, but how, geez, how much just, I guess, a good conversation can affect somebody. Like we've been saying, it's just kind of,
Mhm.
I know I need it sometimes, a refresher of like, don't just ask me how I'm doing and then be like, and I say I'm not doing good and you're like, oh, that sucks. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, please continue.
Ask me more.
One of the girls in my small group texted me yesterday and she's like, how are you? And I know she was not expecting me to say, well, actually, I'm stressed and I have a
Yeah.
lot on my plate. And she was probably like, oh, I just wanted to check in. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
She sent me this long message. It was really sweet. But it's just kind of, it does really affect somebody's day. Just like when somebody comes to the drive-through and they just start ordering before I ask them how they're doing, versus the people that are like, thank you so much, like blah 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 blah, and they are like, how's your day going? And I'm like, oh, do you really want to know? Because I'll tell you. If you have
Yeah.
minutes, I'll actually tell you. So just
Are you being genuine?
yeah. Or do you actually care? Because I will tell you. Like if you don't, I'll just tell you good. But if you actually
Right.
care, I'll tell you, hey, I got 2 tests tomorrow. I'm really stressed about it. And a lot of times people are like, yesterday I told so many people I have 2 tests today, and they were like, I hope your tests go well. And I'm like, thank you.
Oh,
And
that's so sweet.
I know, and I just kept talking to people about it, but less about me. I keep talking about myself. I'm so sorry.
No, this is great. I prefer this.
Alrighty, so I guess we have to start closing out, which I'm bummed about. I feel like I could talk forever, obviously. But
Okay.
I have 3 questions for you. They're like the lightning round of questions. But before I ask those questions, do you have anything you just kind of want to tell the people of the podcast today?
The people of the podcast. Yeah, I think where like a big part of my life is where I really believe that we're here to like our purpose is to tell other people about Jesus. And so like if you are someone that is kind of wondering like, oh, how do I do that? Or um like where do I go from here and how do I like step out in faith? Like I just encourage everyone to like really think about that. Like ponder on like how can I change the world through like telling people about Jesus? Because ultimately like Jesus told his disciples to go. He didn't tell them to stay and make a church and stay where they're at and like hang out. Like he told them to go for a reason. And yeah, I think looking through the Great Commission passages are really important. So go look up. You can just type in the Great Commission passages and they'll pop up. Is a really good thing. So, and there's a lot of resources too that I have, and yeah, that's just something that I'm passionate about. So
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's great. Okay, so those 3 questions I have for you. All right. So the first one is, what is your favorite book right now?
yeah, man, I'm like reading 4 books. I have them on rotation. But the one that I'm thinking of that kind of is going along with like the things I'm learning right now is called Scent by Heather Holleman. And she wrote it with her husband. And it's funny because the author Heather is like an extrovert and she talks to everybody, and like her whole neighborhood basically has come to Jesus through her. And then her husband co-wrote it, and her husband is very introverted and like doesn't like talking to people. And so it's helpful to see like both of their perspectives on like how they reach people, you know, in different ways.
Yeah.
Sent by Heather Holloman is really good.
I love that. Yeah. It's so fun hearing all the different books because you don't realize how many resources we have as Christians because we know like the big books, like the Blue is ready to go on a walk. And so he got his leash down. He got his leash down from the wall by himself and he has dragged it to the door. He
What
is
is
well, you'd think so, but he's really not. Missing up there, poor guy. He is smart, but some things he's a little cuckoo. Anyway, okay, for the next question, it is, what is your favorite verse right now? Whether that's, a verse you use throughout your life or just what you're learning right now. It's up to you.
Yeah. I always go back to Matthew 6. Oh my gosh. I don't remember the verse. It's obviously not my favorite, but I don't remember the verse. But Matthew 6, where Jesus tells his disciples, like, do not be anxious about anything. Like, do not be anxious. Why are you anxious about clothing? Like what you will eat, what you will drink, what you will wear. Like, I clothe the lilies of the field and like feed the birds, and as someone like me who's very anxious, I will literally have chest pains and I'll go and read Matthew 6. And it's also all connected too. Like before that, the passage before that is talking about like where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And it's connected to like being anxious. And yeah, I always go back to that verse.
Yeah, that's a really good verse. I think I really did need to hear that because I'm kind of in this weird, I know I've talked to like everybody right now, but in school right now, I am crazy stressed. And it's gotten to the point where I have just no time to do anything for myself. Like I didn't even post a podcast episode this past week because I was like, I don't have time. And I was so stressed. And April was just kind of like, you have got to do something for yourself. You have got to do something because you're pouring out all this stuff and you're doing all these things and you're not even getting to enjoy what you're here for, which is school and community, and you're just stressed out. And I was like, I know. And so it's nice to kind of hear that, like those anxieties and everything, like, don't be anxious because it's in his hands. And like, I can only do what I can do. After that, it's, but I think I love that a lot. That's a good verse. Yeah. But the next question is, what is your favorite part of God's creation?
Well, you asked me in like my favorite like season of the year.
Yeah.
And I feel like genuinely I should say people, but like right now I'm just loving spring so much. Like I'm so thankful for like in Kentucky all 4 seasons. So the fact that we just experienced kind of more of a dead season, and we're getting into like the blooms like coming to life again. I really am thankful for the little things, like that little thing.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm thankful that God created that for us to enjoy. In the fall, that could have been taken away. Like beautiful things that we see, but thankfully like we get to see a glimpse of like what it could be like in heaven.
Yeah, I love spring and I love the beginning of summer. And then in here, Texas, it's like an oven outside. It was like 90 degrees yesterday.
No.
Yes. So it's really nice. And I love the warm weather, and the cold weather is just not for me. I don't like it. Nope. But
You're in a good place then.
I love the spring, and when it starts getting warm and that feeling of summer's just right around the corner, and it's awesome. And it's amazing, and I love it. And I agree with you. That's something that I write down almost every day. Like, I'm thankful for the warm weather. I do not like the cold. I am tired of the cold, but yeah, I'm in the same boat with you. I'm the same way. Sometimes people aren't your favorite part of creation.
Yeah.
Sometimes they are part of the least favorite at the moment.
Yeah, I like people. I just right now I'm just like the flowers. Like I can pick them with my daughter, and we have fun together, and it's just
Yes,
fun time.
I totally agree. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the podcast. This was so fun and so awesome. And I'm glad we got to have some good laughs and good conversation today.
Yeah,
And maybe one day you can be on again.
yeah,
And yeah,
this is so fun.
this is so fun. And I'm so
Thanks
glad.
for doing this.
Of course. I'm so glad I got to have you on. And Tate spoke very highly of you. So obviously that means a lot because Miss Tate is amazing.
Yes, she is.
So thank you so much. And thank you everybody for listening or watching or whatever you decide to do today. And I'm just very blessed for each and every one of you guys. And yeah, so just be a light for the Lord in everything you do the rest of this week and be the reason someone smiles today. You never know who needs it. All righty. Bye, guys.